footage of Goliath one day. And as soon as I saw him, I knew he couldn't be in his normal gallery, which is Leslie Curtis Designs on Bayview Street. There wasn't enough room. They couldn't do an indoor reception, etc., the COVID picture. And I knew, having worked here with Linda, where he needed to be. And we somehow pulled it off. I don't know how quite what we did in the last 2.5 months. So, the man you're all here to see, Jon Moro.
Oh, I gotta turn it. On. Check. Can you guys hear me okay? Yeah. Great. Thanks for coming. It's a big day, so I've really been doing my best to hold back any showing too many pictures. Teresa would really slap me on the wrist anytime I tried to suggest showing something with a little more detail, but it's been worth it. So I had a moment this summer. I kind of just finished this huge process of 3 years, finishing Goliath, and I had two thoughts. One is he's really too big to keep around the studio, and number two, he's not going to fit in the gallery. So now what? So I want to thank some people who took care of the now what. Well, first, Teresa Piccari, thanks for pointing me in the right direction in terms of social media, setting up the show, helping with publicity, and just the details to make this happen. Thanks to Linda Lesher for allowing us this awesome space. Please go into the bookstore, buy some books. Again, thanks, Linda. John Biddle for designing a crate and a way to move this massive guy. Just did a great job of helping me out and making the whole, I have the artistic process, but then there's the whole practical process of how do you actually move it. So thanks. Leslie Curtis and Don Peckerell, I don't know if you guys are here. I want to thank them for representing me in town for 10 years at Leslie Curtis Designs. Patricia McLean for photographing this project. Thank you very much. She provided just some great shots that we used for publicity. And to my family and neighbors for putting up with the noise and the sawdust that goes with starting work at 8 o'clock in the morning. Thank you. So, one of the themes of this has really been, it's been a community event, and this whole thing started with a gift. At River Arts Gallery in Damariscotta, I was at a show and I met a woman named Mimi McCutcheon, who's right over here. Raise your hand, Mimi. And we struck up a conversation, and she revealed that she had this very, very large piece of basswood, and could I use it? So I think I put it off a week or so, and then she texted me back. She's like, "Are you going to get the wood or not?" So I said, "Yes, I'll take it." So I drove up to Winslow, met her husband John, who helped me stick it in my car. It was 8 feet long by 1 foot by 8 inches, and had to run it through a joiner so that I could start gluing onto it, and that was the start. And most of my work is figurative, and it tends to be smaller in size, but in my mind, the back of my mind, I'm always thinking big. I'm always thinking, what's the next project? What's something really epic? What's something that is going to stretch me? And it's like this itch I have to scratch every couple of years. I got to go big. And so I started doing some dreaming. For me, that's a really fun time when the canvas is blank and you don't have any projects, and it's like the world is out there. What can I do? And this project started to bug me. I'm thinking, all right, I could do this. This sounds fun. So starting a long-term project is a huge experience in delayed gratification. You know it's not going to be done in a month. It's not going to be done in 2 months. It's probably not going to be done in a year. And it's a different approach, for sure. Part of me loves that. As an athlete, it's like training for a sport. You don't get better at something one day. You have to keep doing it over and over and over. And so just that concept of maybe running in a marathon and training is something I've always been drawn to. And so having this project out there for me was a great carrot to get me up in the morning and say, I can't wait to get started. So why David and Goliath? I've always loved the Bible story. It's one of my favorites. It's inspiring, but it's also really relevant to my path as an individual. I coach basketball, and I really believe that one of the most valuable lessons that you can learn as a player is how to confront an opponent that is seemingly better, bigger, flashier than you, and more skilled. I've played some really tough opponents. I see some faces in the crowd that know what I'm talking about. I've looked into the eyes of teammates or players when they're almost intimidated before they even start. And I wanted to bring to life that interaction. And basically because it's an incredible lesson to learn that appearances do not tell the whole story. There are other parts of the game, so to speak, where success can happen. That's heart, otherwise known as courage, preparation, teamwork, and last of all, belief that this something that the odds are very small of happening can actually happen. Upsets can and do happen, but they don't happen by accident. It's preparation. So in drawing on a little bit of life experience, I was on one team that, in my experience, that actually knocked off a number one seed. It was a soccer game, happened in 1996. Our school was ranked 8th, had to get up at 4 a.m. to drive 6 hours to Fort Kent, and knocked off the number one team. And when I think back, that was one of my favorite all-time sporting events. And the reason is, when you do that as a player or as a coach, it does two things. It makes your dream seem possible. When you look at what is possible in your own life, it allows you to say, hey, you know what? The odds weren't great that happened, but it did happen. It did happen. So all of a sudden your whole mindset changes, and whatever you face in life where you're in a situation where, hey, I'm scared about this, I'm not sure, the odds aren't great, you go back and you're like, I remember that game. Wait a minute, that was really fun. All right? So in creating this piece, I asked the question, what is your Goliath? What are you confronting? I have a great friend that has a little sign on his desk that says, the overcomers shall inherit. It's kind of a reminder in my head to always keep thinking about challenging those scary things. So just a little bit about the process. I've been carving for about 20 years, and probably about 100 or so pieces to get here. And early on, I would take my Dremel. It's just like a little drill with a carving bit on it, and I would very tentatively carve a piece of wood off, and then step back and stare at it for 5 minutes. And I hope I don't screw this up. And then I'd make another. Oh no, I better check my references. It's a very slow process. But after all these years, the seeing and the hand-eye reaction and the evaluating happen all at once. It's a very quick process. It's still a long process. It's still many years, but that whole synapse, the action, it's more of a flow now rather than a start and stop. My go-to Christmas present has got to be sandpaper. So how do you carve something three-dimensionally? You need pictures, three-dimensional pictures. I've told a couple of people this today, but Google Images is like my best friend. And I don't know how people carve individuals without using a model before this, because one click will get you a lot of information. So I also you can use frequently, I'll see somebody, oh wait, hold up, I want to snap a picture of that. Anatomy books are great. You can use your own body. I used my own hands for some of these. Clearly Goliath has the Moro nose. The abs, the biceps, I mean, come on.
Let's see.
But, so I've had some minor injuries over the years. Just 3 trips to the emergency room in 20 years. So that's pretty good for a woodworker. And actually I did have an injury with this one too. I was working on Goliath's toes earlier this spring, and I stood up and his left arm whacked me right in the back of the head. And I was a little stunned, but I just kept working and I felt fine. So I went to school the next day, and I got this headache. I'm thinking, man, it's hard to focus. And I realized, like, you know what, I'm probably concussed. So I went home, and fortunately it was a Friday, so I had enough sleep and rest so that I was okay in the morning, but Goliath got me. I want to talk just briefly about some of the artistic decisions that I looked at and had to make. I researched a lot of David and Goliath's sculptures, a lot of what's been done. I didn't want to repeat anything. And the classic is Michelangelo's David, which is great. It's a static piece. It's one of the most famous sculptures in the world. And what I found is that, by and large, most David and Goliath representations are static, meaning it's 2 guys standing and looking at each other before the event, or it's David after the event. There are very few of them actually meeting each other on the battlefield, and that was something I really wanted to show. So I arranged them in the middle of a battle. I love motion in my work, so you can see the cape is flowing. He's up on one leg. David's bag is kind of floating. And so static stuff for me, as I've kind of developed as an artist, is something I just can't deal with. I want to see motion. That's for me what makes it interesting. So I did confront the Bible, consult the Bible. That doesn't work too well. To make sure I was getting some of the details right. And because a lot of the images, if you look up, David is cowering. He's kind of like this, looking back with the sling, and that's not the image that I got from reading. And David says, "Who is this Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God?" So that's like biblical trash talk there, right? He's not saying, "Oh no, we're gonna die." All right, who is this guy? All right, and then verse 48 of Samuel. As the Philistine moved closer to attack him, David ran quickly toward the battle to meet him. So he's going at him, right? He's not intimidated. Couple things. If you have a chance to walk by, I want you to take a look at David's sling. Because in the sling is his rock, so to speak. The rock is made out of a really neat wood called purple heart. Purple heart is from South America. And it's one of the hardest woods in the world. It's no fun to work with, but it is beautiful purple color. It's a really unique wood. And I chose that for 2 reasons. David is going to be king someday. He's got a prophecy on his life, and the color of royalty is purple. In America, we also associate a purple heart with a warrior, with somebody who is great in battle. And David is both of those things. My brother Alex actually sent me this chunk of purple heart from Washington State. He's got this great store called Edenwood, I think it is. It's like going into the candy store. It's a lot of fun. And lastly, I really felt strongly about displaying David and Goliath in Rockport. I spent a lot of time in the Rockport Library as a kid, and it was important to me that it would stay local. And in the times we're in, I really feel like confronting fear and dealing with scary things it's very pertinent, and it's something that I think about a lot. And when you look at these pieces, I want you to think like David. I want you to have confidence. We need compassion. We need to dream about things that seem impossible, and we need to see ourselves as difference makers who can overcome great odds. And that's really the message that I want to send today.